And here this morning, we want to welcome in Studio 33 AD, Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray is the director of our music ministry, and well, that's somewhat of a misnomer. I think it's plural. There's not just one thing that happens here with music at St. John's Cathedral. What are some of these individual
Well,
ministries?
we have 4 choirs, sometimes 5, seasonally. We have, of course, the Cathedral Choir, and we have the Coro San Juan, which is the Hispanic choir. We have our contemporary choir, which has been together over 30, almost 40 years now. And then we have the Life Team Choir. And then Christmas and Easter, we have the chancel choirs of the young people. 8th grade, about 8th to 8th grade is that age group.
And then, so you work and you coordinate with all of these choirs for all of our masses.
Yes.
And, well, we have extracurricular. There'll be diocesan events.
Yeah, anything official that happens in the church, in the cathedral, I am responsible for the music. I have coordinators that work with individual choirs, like, for example, Mireya, who is the coordinator for the Hispanic choir, and then Megan is the coordinator for the Life Team Choir. Diana is an assistant for me to the chancel choir, but she's also an assistant in general. So she'll sing and cantor in the cathedral choir. So I have people that work with me, and so corporately it's the music ministry. I started back in New Orleans. I was a church organist in 7th grade and 8th grade. And so I've been involved with music ministry for many years. Before Vatican II, I actually play the organ and sing Requiem Masses. When your family is involved with the church, as mine was, they expect that the young people in that family are going to be doing a lot of things. And so we lived across the street from the church, which definitely made me accessible. And so back then we would maybe babysit for the rectory. That was answer the phone. And then, of course, it would be my mother's name, Marge. We'd get a call, Marge, send Ray over to come serve this funeral. But then it became, Marge, send Ray over to play for this funeral. So it's been a long time. I've seen a lot of evolution in the church over those years. And it's a very interesting perspective. Now I do, as you pointed out, I have a lot of masses that I do. But for me, I really enjoy the cultural differences. Now, I know multiculturalism was a big thing in the 70s and the 80s, and now we're, I think, looking a little more towards unity in the church. But I still enjoy the cultural differences because we do keep the message the same. But here, the message is very clear. It's Christocentric, with the divine mystery being the priority, the mystery of Christ's death and resurrection, and that's present at all the masses. So we just express that same message culturally. It's just like a language. Yeah, you say it differently in German, but it's more than that culturally. It's more than just language. There are also cultural experiences that have to be addressed. And in music, the church actually refers to that. The documents tell us there are 3 considerations we have to take into consideration, 3 considerations we have to look at when we choose music. And the first one was the pastoral. That some people confuse that. They think that means the pastor makes all the decisions. That's true. That's just not mentioned in there.
You want to make that?
But the pastoral really means the communal, what that community finds motivating them towards prayerfulness, and so we would have the pastoral consideration, the musical consideration. That is it good music? And of course that's a little bit of a discussion. It can be a little subjective, but I try to keep my pulse on what I think that community represents. And then finally, the liturgical consideration. Is it liturgically correct what you're doing? So those are the way you look at
The guiding principles.
That's right. Those are the basic guiding principles that we use to pick the music. So at each Mass, then, I try to get a sense of what represents those communities in terms of what is conducive to prayerfulness, proper liturgy for the liturgical experience. You know, but I think now we're getting back to that sense of awe. I just noticed, particularly at the 10 o'clock Mass, people are wearing a lot more chapel veils. Not that that necessarily is inherently good in itself, but it shows a perspective that's being brought a little bit more towards awe and mystery, I think. That's how I'm interpreting that. That, of course, like everything, is an interesting and complicated question. Some Catholics do sing along. And I'm going to answer it in terms of a comparison. I've played non-Catholic churches too. And so, having played in different churches, I do notice that the Protestant churches do sing more.
Yeah.
And more enthusiastically.
Level of participation sometimes is higher. Yeah.
And some of the reasons, and I think about this, some of the reasons have to do with the traditions. Hymnody was considered to be, in fact, the introduction of hymnody into the Mass was part of that Protestantization of the Catholic Church that some people have claimed has happened. And to a certain degree it's that. Although, if you look at the general instruction, for example, the general instruction gives you 4 options for the entrance and for the communion and for the offertory. But dealing with the entrance, the first option is there is an entrance antiphon, okay, the introit. That's option number 1. You can see in the missalettes, it's on the bottom. Those are pretty left in there, although we don't do them. Although we do see now, we hear verbum spe, the priests that are here, and Father Monius too. They read the entrance antiphon the first thing when they get up there. They read the communion antiphon before they distribute communion. I found this interesting. This was a new kind of evolution on our worship because according to the general instruction, you have, as I said, the 4 options. You either the introit or another psalm, or I think there's another antiphon or another psalm or a hymn. Now, if you know how to read official documents, the first thing is what they want. The second, okay, if you must, there's number 4. Well, of course, as the first document that the bishops, United States bishops, put out in reaction to the Constitution and Sacred Liturgy, the first one that we're mostly familiar with is Sing to the Lord. And I remember reading in Sing to the Lord, referring to the hymns, saying that secular communities, meaning non-monastic communities, tended to warm up more towards hymnody, more so than they do towards psalmody or chant. So that seems to be why the 4th option has become almost the only one that's done. There was a movement that I had seen happening, and I did it myself too, where we would start doing the entrance antiphon as like an introduction to the hymn. So we're getting both. We're getting the hymn, plus we're getting the entrance antiphon read by the celebrant or sung as an introduction. Now, and flexibility is a thing I do try to stress, because for us, for Catholic musicians, the bishop is the main liturgist, but then our rector is the liturgist that's directly responsible to us. And the celebrant at that Mass is the liturgist for that Mass. I do like to be sensitive to what the celebrant wants, and so we try to do that. So here we have now happening where the introit is read, and then we sing the hymn. Okay, well, that's how it is. We now have hymnody has become the standard or the norm. And again, I'm not addressing the issue of people who have always wanted to do the propers of the Mass and have the congregation sing the propers. The propers of the Mass are the parts that change every week. The ordinary of the Mass is the part that's the same. That would be the Sanctus and the Agnus Dei and the Gloria when it's sung and that sort of thing. So my interpretation, and I think, well, I don't think it's an interpretation, I think it's what Vatican II says, is the congregation owns the ordinary. They should sing that above all else. The newest document addresses that issue too of progressive solemnity. And you're supposed to indicate the level of solemnity by what you sing in Mass. And if you look at the primary levels, hymnody is like way down. You know, it's like the first primary thing that should be sung, the music that should be sung, are the acclamations between the priest and the congregation. The Lord be with you. And that should be sung all the time. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then, so it goes down the list. However, most Masses that I experience, hymnody gets the priority. And we have many celebrants, or clergy in general, that don't sing. And to me, that's unfortunate because that's going to dictate, you say, why Catholics don't sing. We kind of got away from that. But one of the determining factors is the clergy singing. That's the influence in a lot of ways. That's why if the first thing that people experience is, the Lord be with you, and you can hear them all singing. So I think that kind of gets them singing. Yeah. So that sort of, back to why Catholics don't sing, if you listen to that, you can hear everybody singing that. There's not a dearth of voices on that. Mm-hmm. So to say why Catholics don't sing is not a fair question. Maybe it might be, why don't more Catholics sing the hymns? Maybe that might be. Or why don't more Catholics sing the Holy, Holy and all of that? So anyway, I do think many people do sing. And I think it's a complicated issue, and probably I am more responsible for whether they sing or not by the music I pick and how often I change music. But in general, I think familiarity is important for people to be able to pray the hymns they're singing. If they're looking at notes and sight read or reading notes, they're not praying it as much. Mm-hmm. And we look at music as being sung prayer. So we're kind of working out this balance between the appropriateness of the song for the liturgy of the day. We want something that's going to fit. How familiar are they with it? How easy is it to sing? And all of these questions combined are determining factors on whether the music will be sung well. So in general, I think St. John's is a very alive community. Back after the COVID break, it was just so wonderful to see so many people wanting to get involved in the church, and it really meant something to them. And it kind of in some ways filtered, that people really wanted to be there. And that sort of had an effect in a lot of ways. When you're talking about commitment, when it comes to choirs, you're just not going to find more commitment than you do with music ministry people. Prior to that, they rehearse every week, they work on music, they're there for more than probably anybody else that in terms of ministries. So it's hard for me to criticize with that kind of participation.
What would you say to our parishioners?
I'd say thank you for coming to church.
Very good.
Hello, my name is Ray Morvant, and I'm the Director of Music Ministries at the Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist here in Boise, Idaho. And I'd like to introduce you to our historic 1921 Tellers Kent pipe organ. Now, John O'Hagan, in his History of the Cathedral, points out that the organ and the cathedral seem to have been built for each other. And the reason, he says, is because the first music director, Frederick Beale, was the one who sent the specifications to Tellers. The original purchase agreement called for 45 ranks of pipes. Now, a rank is a collection of pipes of the same kind, usually one for every key on a manual. The original price was $15,500. Now let's go upstairs into the choir loft and take a look at the console. But first, I'm going to go put on my cathedral hoodie, and I'll see you up there. This Rogers organ console has 4 manuals and a pedal board, and each manual is designated by a name. In the United States, the names are choir, great, swell, and solo. Each manual has its own collection of ranks, and stops are pulled to turn them on. Additional stops can be drawn to add sounds to create a more complex registration. Now let's look at the pipe work. The first pipes that we see are the decorative facade pipes. They're not a rank on their own, but come from various ranks, and they are designed to play as well as to add aesthetic appeal. Behind the facade are 3 rooms of organ pipes, one for the choir, one for the great, and one for the swell manuals. The rooms containing the choir and swell ranks are enclosed with rotating wooden slats that serve to control the volume. When the slats are present, we say that these manuals are under expression. The pipes for the great manual are out in the open and thus not under expression. On the next level, above the choir and swell rooms, are the organ's pedal ranks. So, if you'd like more information on the pipe organ, there is a link on our music ministry page on the Cathedral website to the American Guild of Organists pamphlet, A Young Person's Guide to the Pipe Organ. You can also find a stop list there, which is the list of all the names of the various ranks on the Tellers Kent. Also, if you'd like more information about Beale, this organ, the history of the cathedral, John O'Hagan's great book, Stone Wondrously Hewn, is available through the church office. Thank you so much for listening, and let's let the organ speak for itself.